went there, but we came back.
We came back. Yeah.
And we're back.
And we're back. Hope you enjoyed those ads from our not sponsor, Kraft Foods.
Really?
I don't know.
I grew up with their cheddar, but no, I like extra sharp.
Extra
Vermont
sharp.
cheddar.
Yeah.
Melt that on some sourdough bread. That's good eating.
So good. Fresh baked pasta. So we were talking about early movies about dinosaurs, and of course Peter Jackson. What's the one movie that he did after Lord of the Rings? He just won all the Oscars in the whole world. Just made $3 billion for the studio. He was the hottest director since Steven Spielberg, and Hollywood said, "You can do anything you want." What does he do?
King Kong. He did King Kong. And he built dinosaurs for King Kong and Skull Island. And, you know, the animation was fun. It was interesting to look at. And his evolutionary trajectory for his new dinosaurs, his descendants of our ancient dinosaurs, were pretty plausible. They were fun. They were interesting to look at.
How does Peter Jackson's dinosaurs compare to the latest dinosaurs that we just saw in Jurassic World?
They're better.
Peter Jackson's are better?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They're more graceful. If you see a dinosaur on the big screen or the little screen and it seems clunky, it's not accurate. Dinosaurs weren't clunky. Very few animals in life were clunky. If they're smooth and alert and graceful in knee and ankle, they're accurate.
Because the stampeding herd of long-necked dinosaurs in King Kong is one of the best scenes.
It's excellent.
And they don't,
Really?
Yeah, they don't seem heavy. They don't seem like they're about to collapse under their own weight. These are graceful.
And the allosaurs chasing them are very
Yeah,
good.
they were very bird-like, unlike the running raptors in the latest Jurassic something or other movie.
Right.
Yeah, even though the big long necks were falling off the side of the cliff, which is quite sad, they seemed fairly lightweight. I mean, they had gravity to them, but not they weren't plodding. The earth was not shaking when they would step. They were interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original King Kong has graceful dinosaurs, especially the Vegisaurs.
Mm-hmm.
It's an error to show the most dangerous, unbeatable dinosaurs, T-Rex. Not true. Today, the most dangerous animals are really big social vegetarians. Hippos kill more people than lions. Hippos kill lions.
True story.
Hippos kill lions.
Yeah.
And if you saw a hippo skeleton, you wouldn't recognize it.
It's a scary head.
And that's one of the issues I have with current representations of dinosaurs, is that if you look at like a lot of creatures that exist now, like hippos, no one would be able to recognize it from its skeleton.
Yeah, they would.
Oh yeah.
You think?
Oh yeah, easy.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But the point is that the hippo head is one of the most dangerous heads that have ever evolved. It can chop you in half. It chops Nile crocodiles in half. The armor-bladed Nile crocodile has been observed to be chopped in half by one bite from a hippo. They have self-sharpening, giant chisel-like teeth, extremely sharp and powerful. The hippo can open its mouth to nearly 90 degrees of that. Bam! The kinetic energy is huge.
In Jurassic World, we saw the new something ignominious Rex.
Ignoramus Rex.
Ignoramus Rex. He opens his mouth almost like a full 180.
Not quite. It's foreshortened. You're looking down into his throat. You don't see it directly from the side.
Well, no, in the aviary, when he's talking to the birds saying, attack that helicopter, he does a huge roar and his jaws go like that.
The way dinosaur skulls work is there's an extra joint by the brain case. So leading up from the lower jaw, there's a long bone called the quadrate, which meets into the top back corner of the skull. There's an extra joint there that allows the skull to open extra wide. And there are some real dinosaurs, like allosaurs, for example. They can open up their jaws so that the lower jaw swings down 90 degrees to the upper jaw. They could do that. That's actually pretty realistic. And someone in this room that's wearing a hat published a paper on that a few years back.
Ah.
Who was that?
Moi.
Yeah, that was that guy.
I can't take credit for that. I don't write. Is there so what dinosaur or what ancient animal equivalent would have the strength of a hippo jaw?
Hippo is unusual. Saber-toothed cats do some of the same things, and there's a saber-toothed plant eater, the Uintathir,
Hold on.
a head like that.
Let me grab something from the collections room. You guys hang tight.
But the point I'm trying to make is the most dangerous animal in most ecosystems, present or past, are the plant eaters, the really big plant eaters.
Okay.
You remember the scene in Lion King?
Yeah.
Disney's Lion King, where the baby lion is presented to the elephants and they fall on their knees in obeisance and worshiping it. That's not what happens. When an elephant smells a baby lion, they run up to it and squash it into a yellow haggis on the veldt.
What?
Yes, they kill
So
lions. They kill baby lions.
So, so it sounds like Vegisaurs are just as aggressive, if not more
More so,
aggressive.
the most dangerous animal in T-Rex ecosystem was not T-Rex, it was the big Triceratops.
But T-Rex is so much bigger.
No, it's not. It's taller, but it's not bigger.
Oh my goodness. What is he bringing here?
A vegetarian mammal, the biggest saber-toothed mammal that ever existed.
This is not a saber-toothed
This-
cat.
No, this is a saber-toothed vegan. It's a plant eater with self-sharpening tusks, very, very, very sharp, and 6 horns, very strong neck muscles.
6 horns?
Uh-huh.
What do you need
Two,
6 horns
two,
for?
Two. Well, because the bulls, and the horns are biggest in the bulls, would lock their heads together and push and shove and shove and push.
Do you think these horns would be extended through cartilage that wouldn't
Nope.
survive?
Nope, they would be covered with tough skin like giraffe horns. These are very much like giraffe.
Giraffe
Yeah,
horns.
so
And bull giraffes whack their heads at each other.
30 feet in the air.
yeah, well, they neck wrestle.
18, yeah.
Yeah.
The way that giraffes will do it is they will flex their neck backwards, and with their big ossicones, their little blunt horn-like structures, they'll beat the crap out of each other going like that. It's frightening, isn't it? Uintatherium had a different strategy. They're going to lower their heads, lock ossicones, and shove each other.
Like
you look
a
at
moose.
Yeah, well, look at the back of the head. You see from the place where the brain sits, right in through here, you've got the 2 lobes that connect the skull to the neck. And this sheet of bone back here separates the brain and the brain case from a giant sheet of neck muscles that move the head up from the down position.
One thing that's lacking in most dino movies is you don't see the violence of courtship, the violence of sexual tension, the violence of pre-mating rituals.
And so, how do you know this would be a male or a female?
The female, and there are many, so there are dozens, even hundreds of skulls of Uintatherium. They come in 2 shapes, this shape, and slightly smaller with only the smallest bump here and here, and much smaller fangs. There are alive today saber-toothed vegetarians. They're small. They're mouse deer, water deer, musk deer. And in the males, they have great big, sharply edged fangs, and they whack each other. They'll whack you too. They're not afraid of people. And these are little tiny deer. We call them saber-toothed Bambis.
Saber-toothed Bambis.
Yes.
Well, that Bambi's got to be 12 feet long.
This particular Bambi was small elephant size, 3, 4, or 5 tons.
You know, no big deal. Little tiny.
What? So, how big are its hoofs then?
It had 5 short toes on each paw, rather like an elephant, and small hooves.
So, and would Tolkien have had access to something like this?
There were casts of this. Professor Marsh at Yale had replicas made of his best Uintathirs, and they were sent gratis to the great museums of Europe. Oxford Museum had a set of casts, as did London.
So Tolkien was getting the Oxford and Tolkien would have access to stuff like this.
They're on exhibit, and on exhibit in London.
So you look at this and you think this is big enough to ride.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 7,000 pounds, you could ride it.
So like
We could all ride it.
would it be fast?
Fast only in the sense of being very big. Most human athletes can't outrun a charging elephant, even though it's going 22 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Because you're wearing shoes and have to go around the trees, and the elephant can go through the tree. Smash it.
This is incredible.
You want to hold on to that, or should I take it over there?
Here, you take that over
Take
there.
that.
That's a lesson to you people out there. The biggest saber-tooths, the most dangerous saber-tooths were vegans.
Vegan. How do you know they're vegans and not vegetarians?
Same thing with these guys. If you look at the molar teeth there for chopping up leaves and fruit.
Do you think any dinosaurs lived gluten-free?
Probably most.
You know why? Grass wasn't around yet.
And there was no wheat.
Yep.
The grass wasn't around yet.
No.
Not abundant, no.
Here in the Jurassic, so here in Colorado, Front Range of Colorado, 150 million years ago, if you were a Stegosaurus, the plated dinosaur with the spikes on the end of its tail, and you were to scan the landscape, you would not see one blade of grass.
Not one.
You would not see one flower.
Nope, no flowering plants.
No hardwood trees. The world was very green. The trees were conifers, maybe some tree ferns. The ground cover was fern-like, things like ephedra, some cycadioids, and horsetails and scouring rushes. But no grass.
There's no flowers until the Cretaceous, and they're not common till the Middle Cretaceous.
Mm-hmm. But no grass. When you see a dinosaur frolicking in a grassy meadow, you need to look at the TV screen and just yell at it and say, liar, because it's wrong.
Well, Jurassic Park is based on now, so
Right. It'd be hard to eliminate grass anywhere in an environment now.
would the grass affect those dinosaurs?
Possibly.
There's a lot of silicon grass. They'd have a heck of a time digesting it. It would wear down their teeth. I mean, they do have a great dental plan in that dinosaurs have a never-ending supply of teeth. But, geez, their teeth evolved to deal with different kinds of plants, more woody herbaceous plants, rather than grasses. Yeah.
They would avoid anything that they're not familiar with.
Yes.
I do.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That make it, so if Tolkien is seeing stuff like this,
Had to, yes.
animals that you could ride, what about the giant olifants?
I know exactly what inspired him, because it was the most famous proboscidean elephant-like fossil. At London and at Oxford at the time was the Upnor mammoth, which had just been put on exhibit. Upnor.
UPNOR?
Yeah, it's before it, earlier and taller than the woolly mammoth. Stupendously big skeleton.
Bigger than woolly mammoth.
Much bigger, maybe twice the weight. It's arguably one of the largest elephant-like animals in the whole history of life, and it was on the front page of the London newspapers. You could not avoid the Upnor.
When was this? What year?
It was dug in the late 20s and put on exhibit in the early 30s.
And The Hobbit was almost done in 1932.
Well, and do consider that woolly mammoths, Mammuthus primigenius, in the strict sense, are about as big as an Asian elephant. They're not super big. They're not super big mammoths. And anything that approaches oliphant size as is depicted in the movies, they're just way too big, which is a constant theme that we see in just about every movie that has animals in it, that the animals are just way too big.
But in the novel, the Oliphant is described from a hobbit's POV point of view. That's fairly short. And the Upnor mammoth is just the right size to fill the function of the Oliphant in Tolkien's novel.
And the interesting thing, if you watch Peter Jackson's films, most of the shots when you see oliphants, especially in the end battle, are Hobbit viewpoint.
Right.
You're not at horseback rider viewpoint. You're looking up at the undercarriage of the horses as they're riding into battle toward the oliphants. So you're seeing oliphants as the Hobbit would have seen them.
Even so, the movie Oliphants are, I judge, 2 or 3 times taller than the Oliphants in the novel.
They're way too big. So that was a roundabout way of saying, you're right.
But did they have 4 tusks?
The 4 tusks were added for the movie as described in the book now.
It seems like a giant war elephant, one of
Yes.
Hannibal's elephants, something of that nature.
And those were discussed. Hannibal and his elephants had been discussed since in Oxford since 1662.
That's a big
Because
deal.
the giant bones found were thought to be, well, we don't have elephants in England alive in 1662, so the scholars, including the Dons at Oxford, said, these must be war elephants that got lost from Hannibal's army.
Well, and we do have a question here about dinosaur teeth. Are dino teeth the same as rodent teeth? No, they're not.
No.
They're not
They're
constantly
more like
growing.
crocodile teeth or Komodo dragon teeth.
Yeah.
They're new teeth growing in each tooth socket all the time.
All the time.
Yep, and
It's
then
not
they
the
lose
individual
control.
tooth that grows, it's just when a tooth has outlived its life, maybe 6 months, it's pushed out and a new tooth comes in.
6 months?
Could be.
Think of you yourself as a kid losing teeth when you're in grade school, and just that never ending through adulthood. Through the rest of your life, you're constantly putting teeth under your pillow, hoping for a new
The
Ferrari.
famous kid story, the never-ending story, actually was a story of dental evolution in dinosaurs.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
If you, yes. I made that up, by the way.
I'm gonna buy it. I like it.
So Oliphants are too big for the movie, but Tolkien would have been.
They're the
Totally
Oaknar
in-
mammoth.
Oh, and the interesting thing is that Tolkien, a lot of stuff in Tolkien, you see the wonder that a typical Englishman would
Yes.
have had, and so when you see in Two Towers, they first lay eyes on the Oliphants and say, "Oh my gosh, I never thought I'd ever see one." You have to think that that's probably what the average English person would say.
Oh, yeah.
We're saying when they came upon these bones.
Absolutely. And the Ucknar specimen, that's an early species of mammoth, about 2 million years before the woolly mammoth, and it was found all through Europe. So partial skeletons were available in Vienna and in Berlin, and then finally in England. And by gum, they're stupendous.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still on display?
They are indeed. Google Ucknar mammoth.
UPNOR.
Correct. That's
They're
the
doing it
English
right now.
specimen.
UPNOR. If you're just joining us, this is Matthew T. Mossbrucker. He was just on T-Rex Autopsy on National Geographic Channel.
But in real life, I'm the director and curator at the Morrison Natural History Museum. I dig up old Jurassic dinosaurs and take people through the museum. And who's the gentleman to your right?
This guy is Dr. Bob, and he digs up dinosaurs as well.
And earlier things.
And you write about them,
I do.
and you talk about them,
Often.
and
But if I take my hat off, no one will recognize me. I've done the experiment.
yeah. Which this is why I brought up the Wikipedia photo, because there's very few photos of you without the hat.
That's because it's a little known fact that I'm in the Federal Witness Protection Plan. In fact, there's supposed to be a blue dot. Is the blue dot over my face right now?
Well, that would explain that all dinosaurs are government conspiracy,
Really?
and they didn't
That's
really
nonsense.
exist, and everything is just.
See,
made
I'm
up.
from Jersey, which explains the blue dot over my face and the way your computer disguises my voice.
Yeah, everyone can't tell. Everyone thinks he has the biggest beard.
Right.
Do archaeologists and paleontologists need beards?
Yes. Even if they're women, they have to wear clip-ons.
So why?
It's tradition.
It's because we got into paleontology for the fashion.
That totally makes sense.
We're Jurassic hipsters.
Mosasaurus, a comment from the chat room. Mosasaurus, an ancient form of sea lizard related to monitor lizards and Komodo dragons. Did any dinosaurs have poisonous saliva
Yes.
like Komodo dragons?
Yes.
Wait, how do we know that though? We just have bones.
No. The poison delivery system in the Gila monster. Remember the Gila monster that threatened everybody in Treasure of Sierra Madre? It was under the rock. Gila monsters. And beaded lizards, their close kin, are venomous. And they can give you quite a jolt if you're bitten. And the reason is they have poison glands. There's some salivary glands have been modified to produce poison. The poison is carried down grooves on the teeth into the wound. It's their poison delivery system. A rattlesnake is a more specialized version where the groove is folded over to make a tube.
Yeah.
It's even better. We know several species of dinosaurs, including one raptor, that has grooves on the teeth as a poison delivery system. It's a minority of dinosaur species, but they existed.
So if there were creatures that had poison, is it possible that and they were grooved, not tubed through the tooth, but grooved along the tooth? Is it possible that the tooth could have had some sort of enamel or something on it that would spark and possibly create fire breath?
No. That's a wonderful... In the book of Job, the oldest description of the Nile crocodile, it does in fact belch fire, which is a common theme in myths, that not only is the animal armor-plated and scary and fast and can even fly, but it can belch fire. No vertebrate can do that. Some bugs can.
But this goes to the core discussion about Tolkien being influenced. His masterful genius, creative, visionary
put things together
authors
from different.
Yeah, but so the history of written language has all of these fire-breathing.
It's common. It's even in the Bible.
So
the book of Job.
So this
Tell
has
these
to
people
be
to
based.
look it up.
It has to be based on something that is factual. Maybe not.
The fire part is hard to understand. Fire-breathing dragons are a Western European thing. Chinese dragons, by and large, don't belch fire. And the fire-breathing dragons of Western Europe might be inherited from the biblical fire-breathing Leviathan in the book of Job. And that probably comes from the seven-headed Ugaritic armor-plated crocodile-like dragon. Now we're back to 1200 BC. Now, why are there seven heads? That also appears in the Bible. There's seven-headed dragons. Look at
something
the book
about
of
sevens. Yeah.
Look at the book of Revelation. There's a seven-headed fire-breathing dragon that attempts to destroy what's interpreted as the church. Well, when Revelation was written, that idea was at least 1,300 years old. See, I have, in Psalm 104, there's a description of a dragon. But it's a dragon that's a pet of God. It speaks in Psalm 104 of Leviathan, the seven-headed dragon, being created for God to play with. So I have a bit of animation we need to do. There's God with seven frisbees and his pet seven-headed dragon. And the dragon goes into the surf, and God goes... seven frisbees in the air, and the dragon goes up and catches everyone.
I think the thrower is the more skilled person at that point.
Well, it's God after all.
Well, yeah.
Right, yes.
Hydras. People are saying that those seven-headed things are called hydras.
There's an older name for them, that's Lotan or Leviathan.
What about... If people are looking up Leviathan as you're talking about it.
Look up Lotan too, Lotan, which is the same animal.
Okay, what about the JP Dino? Somebody asked the Dilos from Jurassic Park. I assume they're asking, could they spit? And they spit at Newman.
Many people spit at Newman,
Which is
including
for good
Jerry
reason.
Seinfeld.
For good reason.
The spitter in Jurassic Park 1 is supposedly a Dilophosaurus, and we have complete skulls and teeth, and the teeth were not grooved. That was not a venomous dinosaur. The neck frill in Jurassic Park 1 is cribbed, stolen from a real lizard in Australia, the frilled lizard.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, like Tolkien, the special artists working with Jurassic Park 1 took different things, and put them together in a novel way. But Dilophosaurus was actually a pretty big guy, about 20 feet long. Did not have a frill,
20 feet long.
Yeah, it's a pretty big guy.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the whole concept of Jurassic World and Jurassic Park is that they're splicing different creatures together and completing certain creatures with other
It's
DNA.
more Jurassic World, where in the beginning Professor Wu explains that they've got new kinds of dinosaurs, bigger and toothier and different,
But even in the first Jurassic Park, they put frog DNA to complete the genome. But that concept, that core concept of kind of mashing together a few different animals
That's
to
the
create...
Sacred Island of Dr. Moreau, the novel of H.G. Wells, 1896.
So was Tolkien influenced by that?
No. I think it's far simpler. He was inventing, rather he was putting together, he was morphing both real animals, the giant Cretaceous dactyls that were at Oxford, and real drawings and engravings left by artists in the late Middle Ages in Western Europe showing dragons, and the Upnor mammoth and other giant real fossils, and he was weaving them into Middle Earth.
I guess that makes sense.
Yes, indeed.
But it's just, it's hard for a lot of Tolkien fundamentalists to acknowledge that he's not the creative genius, that he didn't come up with these creatures in a closet. And as we were discussing this yesterday, genius is not the act of creation.
No.
Genius is putting it together
Absolutely.
in the right way. People consider Steve Jobs a genius, even though he didn't create anything that these phones are, or these iPads are. He took existing things and packaged them in what?
Speaking of the word fundamentalists, I grew up among fundamentalists, and they believed that Moses was given the books of the Bible, just sort of dictated to him, and that's just nonsense, and is an insult to people who are literary.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the dragons, the monsters of the Old Testament, were in fact reworked from the monsters of the Ugaritic saga, which were 500 years older, or older still, but they were reworked.
They had to be.
Yes, absolutely.
This level of creation is not...
It's not ex nihilo. Ex nihilo is an insult to the writer and editor. It's not out of nothing.
So is there anything... Have you seen anything in Tolkien's writings that was totally original?
The way you put things together is totally original.
What about, like, the Balrogs and... Yeah, the Balrogs. The big horned beast of...
Yeah, we're influenced by how they were animated in the movie. The description in Tolkien isn't as precise for a good reason, I believe.
I think it's just left to your imagination to envision.
Shadow... He just describes shadow and flame.
Right, shadow and flame.
That sounds pretty damn scary right there, but yeah.
So, but pretty much everything else that he describes is totally based on...
But that's a good thing. He takes many elements from science and many elements from medieval Western European tradition, and many elements from the Bible, which took elements from the Ugaritic. Don't forget the Ugaritic.
Mm-hmm.
Did you study Ugaritic when you were in college?
No.
Oh, that's too bad. Anyway,
So if that's just the nature of creative storytelling,
yes.
Then at its core, then why is there so much negative reaction when guys like Peter Jackson come in and they supposedly change things?
They do. He did change it, or amplify them. The font got bigger and became a different kind of extinct elephant, the four-tusked gomphotheres.
And is that a negative?
No, of course not.
And so why do you think there's such a negative backlash against...
Because people want to protect an image of their hero as unique and uninfluenced by anything earlier. That's the reason that fundamentalist Christians and ultra-Orthodox Jews don't want to hear about Moses being influenced, or the Old Testament being influenced by the Ugaritic. They don't want to hear that. And that's a false protection. You're not diminishing Tolkien's greatness by trying to identify some of the influences and trajectories he wove together.
And this just it got even more amplified with the Hobbit trilogy. I mean, there were some naysayers that were like, that's not what Tolkien described in the book, but that was cool nonetheless, and it worked for the movie. When we got to the Hobbit, there were so many changes. We're getting texts on the hotline 530-64-FRODO. That's really our phone number. When we got to The Hobbit, there were so many more changes. Not just creatures.
And excisions.
Yeah.
I love The Hobbit, but if you watch the rhythm of The Hobbit is walk, walk, walk through the deep forest, stay the night with a friend, have 2 huge meals.
Mm-hmm.
Next day, walk, walk, walk through a different place, avoid orcs or whatever, escape, go with another friend, have another meal. There's more eating than fighting in The Hobbit, but in the movie, there are relatively few meals.
The first movie is all meals. Yeah, because they eat at Bilbo's house, and they eat at Elrond's house.
Yes.
And then they eat at Beorn's house.
Well, hobbits love to eat.
And
Sounds good.
They have 3 breakfasts, and then brunch, and then lunch.
So when you get to the point in The Hobbit where Peter Jackson introduces characters that are allowed in the Legendarium, Tolkien set up the rules of the world and allows for creativity in that world. Why do people hate that there's an extra girl in The Hobbit when it was appropriate for this story, and she totally could have existed?
Well, totally, and it's a different literary environment now in the 21st century than in 1930 at Oxford, which was a sausage fest. It's just guys there. So you're not going to have many female characters.
Were there any girls in any of the departments at a senior level?
Oh, God, no. Oh, mercy, no.
Even in the Dinosaur?
No. There were a few grad students in science at Oxford in chemistry, but most undergrads, with few exceptions, were guys, and all of the instructors, all the dons, were guys. And that's the way it was in most universities, including the Ivies, straight up through the 1960s.
So what's it look like now?
Right now, there are more women who are doing their PhDs in English, mythology, and paleontology than men.
There's more women in paleontology right
Than
now?
men, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
At Oxford or everywhere?
Everywhere, worldwide.
What's encouraging this shift?
A bunch of things. One, that finally the bias, the sexism, which was very strong, has disappeared. When I was an undergrad at Yale, the head of the graduate division, very, very nice guy, said, Bob, we shouldn't fund women to be grad students because they'll get their PhD and then they'll just get married and have kids.
So it'll be a waste of everybody's time.
That's what he implied.
And what we're finding is that wasn't accurate.
No.
So the stories that Tolkien wrote were of the time.
Yes, of course.
And they were successful of the time.
Of course.
Then they're still successful.
Yes.
But now the times have changed. It shifted. More women are into paleontology and everything else.
Everything.
So it is totally appropriate.
Absolutely.
To include these new characters because there's more opportunities.
You'd have to be a paranoid, insecure little man to object to the increase in the number of women in the Tolkien.
Well, a lot of people didn't like the fact that she just became a love interest.
Which one are we talking about? Surely not Liv Tyler.
No, in the Hobbit movies,
Yeah.
Tauriel's character.
Right.
But at first people complained that she just existed. There's no girls in the Hobbit. It's like, no, well, that was written in the 30s when there weren't girls allowed to do anything.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Except the Russian Air Force, you could be a fighter bomber pilot in the Russian Air Force in 1930.
That's why they were always awesome.
Yeah, they were pretty scary.
Russian military has always been on point. Napoleon found that out. People need some closure. From the chat room, people need some closure and connecting on where they were when Christopher Lee died. Oh, people are saying in the chat room that they want to send notes to Christopher Lee's family. We looked into it. They don't want to. The family doesn't want to deal with that because his wife's pretty up there, and he doesn't have any kids. It was
I
just
think
him.
we should respect his privacy in death.
Oh, the best thing you can do for Christopher Lee, Christopher Tolkien is another topic. Christopher Lee is just publicly praise him and tell all your friends to watch his movies.
Yes.
And enjoy it. Turner Classic Movies is showing nothing but Christopher Lee movies on June 22nd from sun up to sundown. And there's going to be a lot more tributes. That's the best tribute that you can do.
Yes.
Enjoy his work.
Is enjoy his work, appreciate his work,
Mm-hmm.
because he was a singular fellow, a titan, and a beloved person, and he doesn't have any kids, and his wife just wants to, grieve in her way. So.
And it should absolutely be respected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see there's a lot of comments in the chat room about that. So that's the official stance. If we hear anything different, we'll let you know next week on the show. Well, I appreciate you guys coming and talking with us about Tolkien and beasts.
And the Ugaritic sagas.
Ugaritic sagas.
Where the seven-headed flying armor-plated crocodile makes its appearance.
In the random Uintathir.
And the Book of Job.
Book of Job, go read it.
And
Psalm 104, go read it.
104? I was about to say 140.
104.
104. This is there's so many influences. Tolkien is a genius because he knew how to put things together.
Yes.
And the best people at anything, the best people at paleontology are the ones that know how to put together a skeleton right.
Yes.
Because some people will just throw any bones up there to complete the skeleton.
I've seen hideous errors made by Harvard PhDs. Hideous.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen errors committed with recent mounts of big meat-eating dinosaurs. So it still happens.
It still happens.
And remind everyone to adopt a cat.
A cat.
Adopt a cat.
We've been talking about this all week.
Adopt
It's
a
cats, not dogs. And not birds.
Adopt a cat.
If you want something want to experience something as close to a dinosaur,
No, it's just there's many cats that
there's
need
just a
adopting.
lot of cats.
That need to be
You
adopted.
can have
But
get a chicken if you want to understand dinosaurs. Get a couple chickens. They'll make you breakfast. It's a convenient.
Chicken?
fact.
Chickens are good.
Peacock.
No, chickens.
Peacocks are loud.
They're really
Do you
loud.
did any dinosaurs
male.
have a big peacock plume?
Yeah, actually, there's raptor dinosaurs
Yes.
that around the tail. They actually still had long bony tails, unlike birds today, and the long bony tails had flight feathers on them, and I'm sure that there were display features.
So there might be raptors that actually peacocked out.
Some,
they-
to an extent, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that'd be so.
They've got some flair on their booties. Absolutely, it's my professional opinion.
So there should have been more feathers in Jurassic World.
There should have been at least a feather in Jurassic World.
Yeah, but it would break canon. You can't.
Break
It's
movie
too
canon.
expensive. The bottom line is to animate, particularly a big animal, realistically with feathers or hair, is too expensive in pixels, in seconds, and in money.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it yet.
You can do it at a cartoon level.
Yes.
That's why all furry creatures are cartoony, pretty much.
The National Geographic did a pretty good job.
They did.
Pretty good job.
Well, and the Jurassic Park dinosaurs, that universe, those are like mid-20th century dinosaurs, pre-feathered, and
Some of them are mid-18th century dinosaurs.
well, we won't. We need a whole 2 more hours to talk about each individual animal and everything that's wrong with them.
Oviraptor? Someone brought up Oviraptor.
Covered with feathers and had tail feathers that could spread.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The whole family, Oviraptors in general.
What's it gonna take for? When are we gonna see that represented in a mass media?
It's been some excellent hour-long documentaries which had oviraptors with their tail feathers correctly animated.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on BBC, on
Yes, there, and Discovery and a bunch of others, a bunch of Russian and even Mongolian and Chinese animation.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, Jurassic World still set records for
It's
a number of
fun.
things.
It's fun.
People just want to have fun.
Well, and hopefully they'll come to a museum nearby them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question for the Dino guys from Ellen Design, one of our regulars in the chat room. Why is there such a large amount of dino fossils in Colorado? Why aren't they spread out more evenly?
Well, there are lots of dinosaur fossils in several provinces in China, not just one. Wufeng province, Liaoning. There are lots of Jurassic dinosaurs in East Africa. There are lots of early Cretaceous dinosaurs in Australia. If you want to die young and leave a good-looking fossilized corpse, you must have the good planning to leave your corpse in a place that's going to be covered with mud and sand right away before the scavengers pull you apart and chew up all your bones into meaningless fragments. And it turned out in the Jurassic and early Cretaceous, and later on the late Cretaceous, here in Colorado, there were low places, places where water and mud and sand would accumulate. And the dinosaurs had the good sense to die there and to be buried right away by the spring floods, because you're not buried away.
Yeah, awfully convenient. I mean, essentially anywhere that was collecting sand and mud during the age of dinosaurs, when dinosaurs were alive, is going to produce dinosaurs. And we find carcasses of the beasts all over the world, all 7 continents. So.
But poor Cleveland didn't have a low spot where bodies and mud could accumulate, which is why there are no dinosaurs reserved in the city of Cleveland. So not far away they have wonderful Devonian fish, armor-plated sharks from earlier.
Ooh.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Man.
Their Mesozoic rocks weren't scraped off by glaciers, were they?
There wasn't much there to begin with.
Okay.
Not much. So let everyone know on the chat room that prepare the resting place of their corpse. It's got to be a place that will be almost immediately covered up with sand and mud. It's like the mafia burials in northern New Jersey and Sea Caucasus. It's mud and goop and
Quicksand.
yeah, and slow mud.
So if someone wants to pursue this passion, is there any timetable, or how does someone start helping you dig up dinosaurs?
Well, they should find a local museum first and join. And there are good local museums in every state. Like the Morrison Museum is now one of the older and more successful local museums, very active in digging dinosaurs and doing research on dinosaurs and training volunteers. Find a place nearby.
And then if there's an active dig going on somewhere, whether it's in Montana or Texas or other countries, is there digging going on in the UK, Scotland?
There are. The British Isles are amazing in having a tremendous variety of fossil beds, starting way back 1 billion years ago and going straight up to the ice ages, where there's the Upnor elephant. Don't forget the Upnor mammoth. It's amazing the variety of fossils in the United Kingdom. And yes, they find stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
So you could actually possibly go dig up an oliphant.
You could.
Yeah.
It happens every year.
In
actually.
the UK.
Yes, it happens.
It happens in South Dakota. If you
Yep.
volunteer at the Hot Springs Mammoth site in
Wonderful.
South Dakota, which is a beautiful museum. There's a huge sinkhole full of mammoth carcasses. I mean, they're really big too. I mean, they're much bigger than a woolly mammoth. These Colombian mammoths are still in need of some TLC, some excavation. You can volunteer there if you want to dig up a mammoth. It's a fantastic
There are
museum.
mammoths in virtually every state of the Union. And there's good Jurassic dinosaurs in about 10 states. And there's good late Cretaceous dinosaurs, time of T-Rex, in 10 or 12 states. So there are small, medium, and large museums where they would welcome your volunteer help.
Yeah, it's needed. believe
So
me.
so if there's a local dig and you've got the summer off from school or something like that, what do you need? Do you need money to pay for a hotel nearby? Do you need to buy new clothes and certain shoes?
I would buy old clothes and old shoes.
Stuff that just get destroyed.
And it will get muddy.
Everything gets ready.
In lute veritas, which is our motto, which means in mud there is truth.
That is a great thing. But where do people stay? Like, what can you tent it?
Depends on the
Depends.
dig. Sometimes there are tents. Sometimes there are quaint Western motels where every morning you're greeted by a different array of arthropods that are sharing your bed.
It's part of the whole experience.
It is.
Truck
And
camping.
is there a minimum amount that you ask, amount of time that you ask of volunteers? Like, don't come out unless you're. Then you should
4 days.
Okay.
You become more and more valuable each day you spend out there.
Okay.
And you'll have
So
a better
that's enough.
time too, because
Yes.
you'll develop some familiarity with the rock and with the fossil, so you'll understand what's going
4
on.
days.
Yeah, you'll get a bigger picture.
And at the end of 4 days, you would have gotten between 18 and 22 bug bites.
And is there any certifications or something of like a number of hours out in the field get you a certain?
I don't
something?
believe in certification myself. There are museums that will give you a little sign sheet that says you are now something. We don't do that. I've been teaching. I've been helping to teach volunteer courses since 1968, and I found it's just better to invite people back who are really good and who don't drop things often.
Yeah, steady,
Forever.
strong hands. How would you get something so big out of the ground? That's what takes so much time.
It does take time. The bigger the fossil, the more delicate it is, because there are cracks in most fossil bones. And if you have a big fossil bone, there are thousands of cracks. Some of them you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So as you carefully pry the rock away from the bone, you've got to look with your hand lens carefully and paint in a thin, penetrating preservative. And that takes a long time. And then the bigger the bone is, the more it will tend to break under its own weight.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to reinforce the package containing the bone with layers of plaster, high-quality plaster, and sometimes foam.
Mm-hmm.
It does take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And always find a dig in a reputable place. Don't dig up your neighbor's yard.
Unless the neighbor has bones and has invited you in. That happens in Texas all the time.
Yeah. Always ask first, for sure. But find a small museum, find a big museum, find a medium-sized museum, and get involved. Get off the couch, get out from behind the computer, and get involved. Get in the lab, like we are right now.
Well, what if people just won't be coming to Colorado, Denver, Morrison anytime soon? Can they
can go anywhere.
support?
Yeah, there are wonderful museums everywhere. Just find the closest museum in your backyard, and I guarantee you there's something for a volunteer to do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And you can and support is not just your time and energy. You can also, if you have the means, support financially.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I always forget about the money part, because we don't necessarily do this for the money, but absolutely, I mean, just one tungsten carbide tip for our air tools, things like this. This is a $1,000 tool, handmade in a German dentist lab. Just the tip of this tool, which it helps us to separate grains of sand from Jurassic dinosaur bones. That's $60.
So don't drop it on the floor.
I'll try not to. Again. But yeah, money definitely helps if we want to clean these dinosaur bones, that's for sure.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I hope that you all are more informed on the act of creation. Someone in the chat room finally said, "Justin, why are you so fascinated with dinosaurs?" I'm fascinated with creatures that inspire.
Nature's real dragons.
Yeah. Real dragons. I'm fascinated with things that inspire people. Tolkien inspires so many people to do many great things: cosplay, their own books, movies, and just celebrate fandom. And dinosaurs have just as much of an influence, if not more of an influence, on creative endeavors. And I'm just always fascinated with these beasts because. A lot of times we haven't been able to see any good dinosaurs in 10 years on the movies until now. But you heard it from the experts. Peter Jackson probably makes the best, most accurate dinosaurs.
Recently, yeah.
In feature films.
Yeah, for sure. The motion, yeah, absolutely. Well, and if you guys are interested in following along at what we're up to here at the museum, find us on Facebook. Right at the Morrison Natural History Museum. You can follow along on Twitter at Morrison Museum. And Dr. Bob's museum is the Houston Museum of Natural Sciences. He has a blog called Beyond Bones, which is absolutely worth your time to read. And there's a tiny little museum, our sister museum, in Seymour, Texas, the Whiteside Museum of Natural History. Follow them on Facebook as well. They're a fantastic organization. Both our museum and the Whiteside are accepting volunteers if you want to get out in the field with us or support us in any way. Yeah, you guys have anything else you want to add?
You're at MT Mossbrucker.
Oh yeah, I'm on the Twitter too.
You're on Twitter, MT Mossbrucker. Are you on Twitter?
No, I don't believe in Twitter.
No?
It exists. I have it on my phone.
You can talk. You can talk as much as you want to the whole world. That.
I do that through my blog entries.
See, it's long form.
Where's your blog?
At the Houston Museum of Natural Science. There's some really good stuff, profusely illustrated even.
By the author, I believe. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Torn Tuesday for Tuesday. What's today? June 16th.
Yes, it is.
Something like that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with June 16th. Stay tuned next week, live at 5 p.m. Pacific, as Cliff and I remember Christopher Lee. He was not a dinosaur. He was working all the way up to the end. I mean, he was singing rock music, heavy metal music, this last year. Like the dude didn't settle down, and these dinosaurs aren't settling down either. They're as alive as ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I'm gonna walk up to the iPad and turn it off. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.